Well, the old adage is true. If you build it, they will come. You guys asked for it, so here it is. Here's some of the best movies in my collection. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Nick here from the Lost River Drive-In, and today I wanted to give you guys some of the best movies in my physical media collection. Now, I want to start off by saying that I tried to really remove a lot of bias here, and I picked 10 movies just off the shelves that I thought, I feel like these are inarguably all great films in terms of filmmaking, acting, score, whatever it might be. Now, that's not to say that some of these movies might not be for you. You might go, yeah, I didn't really care for that movie. This is more on a technical level as a film. 10 films that I think are some of the best in my collection. And as with my last video, they're not all going to be horror. Most are horror, but there's a few that I'm just like, look, this film is incredible, so I have to add this in here. And the first one we're going to start off with is the 1974 classic, Black Christmas. Look, we have talked about Black Christmas on my channel for a number of years because every Christmas season I talk about this film and the 2006 remake. I love both of those movies. So there's a little inherent bias here because I'm a huge fan of this movie. Having said that, this is just a great film in terms of script, in terms of how it's shot, the score, the palpable tension throughout, the mystery of it all. This is truly a work of art. Bob Clark did a bang-up job with this movie. I didn't watch this movie till I was a teenager. I had never even known that it had existed until the remake came out when I was 13 years old. So then I went back and watched this, and even as a teenager, I didn't find myself bored. I didn't find myself disinterested at any point. This movie is just genuinely a technical marvel from start to finish. Now, having said that, I understand why it might not be for some people. A lot of people will say, it was slow, it was boring, it's not really my flavor, and I get that. But as somebody that's a huge fan of the original Halloween, you guys should know, I don't mind a slow burn so long as that tension and that suspense is there. So long as the buildup is there and the payoff is worth it. And Black Christmas is that to a T. Not to mention it just encapsulates the Christmas holiday and it gives you a truly evil film to watch during an absolutely otherwise joyous season. So, Black Christmas 1974 is one of the best movies in my collection. And in keeping with the theme here, and this should surprise nobody, John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween. Look, obviously there's inherent bias here because I'm a huge Halloween fan. That's not a surprise to anybody. Having said that, this movie, just like Black Christmas, hits all the beats that you need a great film to hit. You have a very likable protagonist, you have a very mysterious and menacing antagonist, you've got a good script, you've got good filmmaking, a lot of suspense, a lot of tension, a lot of dread. It's just everything you need from a great movie. Now, just like with Black Christmas, I understand that this is not everybody's cup of tea. It's most people's, but it's not everybody's, and that's okay. Having said that though, Halloween is one of those movies that you just can't walk away from and say, that was a bad movie. If you didn't like it, if it didn't work for you, if you found it boring, that's fine. That's an opinion. Walking away from this movie and going, that movie is bad, is just a bold-faced lie. This is one of the best movies I own, and I don't know anybody that doesn't own it. Now, I wanted to go a little retro with the addition for this movie that I picked off the shelves. And the next movie is The Exorcist. And of course, I just love the VHS, the aesthetic of it. This was my childhood. You guys know, if you're millennials or Gen X, you understand what this means to you. And, I love the sticker on there. Don't rent before December 26th. Look, The Exorcist is an all-timer. I have gone on record as saying I think this is the greatest horror film ever made. Now, I know there is a contingent of people out there that are like, I prefer Exorcist 3. And that is okay, because that is a great film. I love that film. Having said that, taking personal feelings out of this, I truly believe this is one of the greatest horror films ever made. In my opinion, it's the greatest. But I digress on that point. Look, this movie is just so effective. This movie, the first time you watch it, especially if you grew up with any religious beliefs or leanings, will burrow into your bones. The first time I watched this movie as a little kid, it scared the absolute crap out of me. I was so fearful of the devil, of being demonically possessed. My mom used to get olive oil and put crosses on the windows and doors of our house every time we would move into a new one to bless the place. And I feel like The Exorcist played a huge role in that. Look, this movie was a phenomenon. It is iconic in pop culture. And we can go down the line talking about the acting performance by Linda Blair or Ellen Burstyn, or the directing by William Friedkin, or that score of Michael Oldfield's Tubular Bells put to film like no score has ever been put to film. This movie is incredible. It will live on for generation after generation. And I truly believe this is one of those horror films that I think will be immortal. And for that reason, and that reason alone, aside from how you feel about the film, it's one of the greatest movies I own, period. All right. I'll admit a little bit of bias here. Just a little bit. If you know me, you might know where this is going. Here we go. Dr. Sleep. Look, you could put The Shining here as well. I will give you that. Either one of these films. I chose Dr. Sleep because it's just so on brand for me. But both films are truly great films. The difference, I think, for me is that I feel like Dr. Sleep has more character development and there's more of an arc to your main character than The Shining. So that's why I give this one the edge. But look, this is a masterclass in filmmaking. Like, point blank, it is. Mike Flanagan is a phenomenal director. He has yet to make something that I did not find at least decent. That is very hard to come by nowadays because even John Carpenter has stinkers. Wes Craven has stinkers. James Wan has a movie or two that's just, No, not Mike Flanagan. Every single movie is at least good. That is a great filmmaker. Look, to make a sequel to a movie 40 years later and have it be as good as this movie is, you just don't hear that. Especially because the source material, I've read it, the book Dr. Sleep is not great. You have to have a great filmmaker, a great team working on the film, great actors to really take something that's lesser and make it passable. Not only did they make it passable, they made this movie great. Had they marketed it more as a sequel to The Shining, I feel like this would have been a much bigger deal. But as it is, regardless of how it did at the box office or whatever, this movie does justice. This movie deserves to be a sequel to an all-time classic because it's that damn good. Now, I admit some of my bias, again, but Dr. Sleep is one of the best movies I own. And ironically, the next movie definitely played a role in the lackluster box office performance of Dr. Sleep, and that is Joker. Look, I am not a superhero movie guy. I like Spider-Man, I like Batman, and Superman kind of. Everything else, I don't really care for. I'm not up on the MCU. I'm not up on any of that. I love the character of the Joker. And most people would agree, how could you ever do what Heath Ledger did in The Dark Knight? So when this solo standalone Joker movie was announced, and it was totally separate from the DCEU, many people were like, Todd Phillips, the Hangover guy, he's making a grounded, gritty, realistic Joker movie? I don't know about that. And I was one of them. And then the trailer came out and I said, oh my God, this movie is for me. Look, I saw this movie on opening day in theaters. And it was a phenomenon. It was. I thought this was the greatest movie I was going to see that year or in years. And then a week or two later, I saw Dr. Sleep. But this movie is incredible. The portrayal of a broken man in a broken society leading a mentally ill person to the lengths that he ends up going to is tragic. It's also super realistic. We see it so often. And I wish it weren't true. I know all of us wish it weren't true. But it is true. People that are broken like that, sometimes they don't get back up. This is a beautiful character study on mental illness and on a society that is failing so many people that need help. Never mind the fact that Joaquin is incredible as Arthur Fleck. Robert De Niro is great in his role in this movie. This movie is just chef's freaking kiss. A lot of people say, oh, it's a lot like Taxi Driver. That was literally the point. That is the main influence of this movie. There's nothing wrong with homaging something so long as you are leaning into it and saying, yes, that is what we're trying to elicit from you. This movie is an uncomfortable watch, and it's a sad watch, but it is undeniably a great film, and one of the best I own. Now I'm really going to surprise some of you guys, but next up is Hereditary. And listen, nobody is as surprised as me that this is one of the best movies I own. I remember when this movie came out, and it was really becoming this phenomenon. Everybody was talking about it. It was doing super well for an A24 movie, and it got insanely good reviews. And I stayed away from it because I thought, there's no way it's that good. This is all hype. I'm going to go see this movie. I'm going to be disappointed because everybody lauded it as one of the greatest films ever made. And boy, was I wrong. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say this is a top 5 movie of all time. It's not. But as far as the movies I own, it's one of the best I own. Hereditary did things to me that modern horror movies very, very rarely do for me. It left my jaw on the floor twice, literally. It creeped me out. It got under my skin. Toni Collette in this movie, I will scream it from the freaking rooftops. She was absolutely robbed. Nobody gave a better performance that year in a movie. Nobody. I'm sorry. The stages of grief this woman goes through in this movie and the way she plays it up. And then when she turns into this like demon possessed thing at the end, she's creepy. It's just so effective. Look, this movie, for so many reasons, is incredible. Like, I am shocked because I thought Ari Aster was going to be the next big thing. And he's been spotty at best for me since this movie. But Hereditary, I will take nothing away from this movie. It is as good as the critics and the fans were saying. It did deserve the money it made and the praise it got. And Toni Collette deserved the Oscar. And keeping it in theme with the horror, the next movie is Candyman. Look, I have also talked at length about how much I love this movie and why I love this movie. And there are so many reasons why this is technically a great film. Bernard Rose's direction is top notch. You don't see that, or at least you didn't see that, in the early 90s in a horror film. You just didn't see direction like that. Philip Glass's score is literally to die for. I can listen to that on a loop. It is that good. Tony Todd in this movie. Even though he only has like 10 or 11 minutes of screen time, it is so effective every time he's on screen. Virginia Madsen is incredible in this movie as well, and my goodness is she gorgeous. This movie is everything right about making films on a technical level. It also really addresses, in subtle and not so subtle ways, classism and racism in America, and I love this movie for that. That was such a prominent topic at that time, and sadly still is. And this movie handles it so well. It doesn't come across as preachy for anybody that's like, oh, I don't want my movies to preach to me. It doesn't do that. It's definitely more subtle than some movies nowadays, but Candyman handles all of its themes, all of its metaphors, all of its symbolism perfectly. This is one of the greatest horror films ever made. I'll die on that hill. It's my favorite horror film of the 1990s, and it is one of the best movies I own. Now let's veer off the horror path a little bit and go back to an action movie, which is Skyfall. Look, a lot of people are going to be a Casino Royale or a Skyfall guy when it comes to Daniel Craig's tenure as James Bond. I can't say whether I'm one or the other. One day I'm one day I'm the other. I will say this. They're both phenomenal films. In my opinion, 2 of the top 5 Bond films ever made. But you put a gun to my head, and I'm telling you Skyfall is the best Bond movie ever made. And I know a lot of you that maybe go way back to the Dalton era or the Connery era or even Brosnan, you might give me pushback on that. And I understand that. This is probably partially due to when I grew up. These movies were coming out. They were popular. Having said that, I've seen a lot of the Bond films. I've also seen a ton of action films. Skyfall is how you make a truly great action film with deeply emotional stakes and resonance, with great acting, great set pieces, truly kinetic action, an antagonist that is just to die for, and a protagonist that walks that line sometimes where you don't know whether he's totally who you need your protagonist to be, but at the end of the day, you side with him because he's hurting, he's damaged, he's justified in doing a lot of what he does and feeling the way he does. And I feel like that is the greatest triumph of the Daniel Craig era of James Bond films. All the characterization they gave to James Bond, the grief, the pain, the loss, it is truly one of the greatest action movies I have ever seen. Now, like I said, I'd probably put Casino Royale like literally right behind it. Like honestly, and some days I'd put it above it. But right now, today, where I'm sitting, This is the best Bond film. This is the best James Bond. And this is one of the greatest movies I own. Now, these next two are interesting because a lot of people are either one or the other types of people. And I thought, when making a list of some of the best movies I own, why do I have to be one or the other? Why can't I be both? So let's be both. First up is The Dark Knight. Look, I have talked ad nauseum about Heath Ledger as the Joker in this movie. It goes without saying. This movie is so much more than that. It is about a city that is corrupt. It is about a people that are oppressed. It is about looking at humanity as a whole, questioning things. What's righteous? What isn't? What can lead you to doing something that you think is righteous out of vengeance? What can all of that do to a society, to a group of people? I mean, just go down the freaking list. You have an antagonist. Just let's separate the performance for a second. That literally is doing it to just shake up the system, to revolutionize things, to literally want to watch the world burn because he doesn't believe the world works the way it is. So much about this movie is incredible. Everybody has a favorite Nolan film. This is my favorite Nolan film. Right there with Oppenheimer. Now I'm thinking about it. Regardless, whatever. The Dark Knight is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made because it's not really a superhero movie. It is so much more than that. And I know The Dark Knight Rises gets shit on. Look, I think it's a great trilogy. From front to back, I truly love Nolan's Batman trilogy. But it is undeniable, in my opinion, that this is the greatest of the trilogy, one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, and definitely one of the best movies that I own. And because of what I prefaced that last one with, you probably know where I'm going with this last one. And that's okay. I'm doing it anyway. The Batman. Look. The world, the internet, was ablaze when Robert Pattinson was announced to be the next Batman. There were 50% of people that said, oh my God, I'm so excited. There were 50% of people that said, oh, the sparkling vampire? What? Yes, that guy. This movie, Matt Reeves, take a freaking bow. The only thing that I'm mad about is that it is taking so damn long to get the sequel. It hasn't even started filming yet. I'm hoping the Penguin TV series can tide me over until we get the sequel. But regardless, look, it was a daunting task to release a huge budget superhero movie amidst a pandemic while you also had all of the uncertainty of the DCEU happening at the same time. Matt Reeves delivered a story and a movie that is just to die for. Gotham has never been seedier, and the people in it have never been as corrupt. This movie truly feels like Gotham. This Batman truly feels like the comic book Batman. I read those comics when I was a kid, and in my opinion, this is the closest a live-action movie has come to that comic-accurate Batman, specifically the Long Halloween Batman. If you guys haven't read it, please do. It'll blow you away, especially if you're a horror fan. Pattinson nailed this role. Zoe Kravitz is great. Colin Farrell, come on. I can go down the line. John Turturro, seriously, this movie is phenomenal. This movie deserves a trilogy. It deserves as many movies as Matt Reeves wants to make off of it. It is that damn good. And it is 100%, without a doubt, one of the greatest movies I own in my collection. Now that's 10. That's not the only 10. That's not the 10 greatest. That was me standing at my shelves and going, let's pick 10 of the best I own. You. If you guys liked this, just like you liked the worst movies in my collection, let me know and I'll do another add-on video. I love doing these because I can talk about movies I'm passionate about, whether it's movies I love to love or love to hate. Either way, it starts conversation, and that is the most fun part about being a content creator. But I want to hear from you guys down below in the comment section. What do you think about these 10 movies I picked? Give me your thoughts. Even if you disagree, I want to hear them. I thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is Nick. I thank you so much for taking time out of your beautiful sunny summer day to pull in to the Lost River Drive-In. But sadly, I'm pulling out.